Why would somebody be upset? You know, why would they take it as an attack when you're trying to encourage them? Like, listen, don't put no other human being in the place of God. Hey, what's going on, family? Welcome back to the podcast. I pray that all of you guys are having a great week so far. And I want to say thank you for tuning in. But I am going to start this podcast off with a rant. I want to talk about something that really bothered me on a video, a short that I posted recently. I originally posted it on YouTube and Facebook. That's what I normally do. I'll post a short to YouTube and then to Facebook. And a lot of times it'll turn into where I would post on TikTok or Instagram. And the reason why I was upset was because of all of the dislikes that the video got on YouTube. And before you guys, tell me off or start talking junk or jump in the comments saying, what do you think? Your videos are not supposed to get dislikes or nobody's supposed to like it or everybody's supposed to agree with everything you say. Trust me, it doesn't have anything to do with that at all. I truly understand that nobody always agrees with you. Nobody always likes the content that you post up. But what baffled me was the type of video that I posted up and what the video was about that shocked me when I saw the dislikes that it received. And you know what? Instead of me just talking about it, I'll let you check it out first. And then I'll come back and touch on what bothered me about why this video got so many dislikes. You look at the fivefold ministry, or what people call the fivefold ministry, that scripture, it says, listen, we were given to you by God. We are gifts, right? We're here to serve. We're not here to be served, to be idolized. And I'm not saying that you can't appreciate your leader, your pastor, or whoever, but you got to be, there's a very thin line there sometimes to where it's a being, appreciating them or idolizing them, putting them in the place of God. And that's why a lot of times when these people fall from, wherever they fall from, people are devastated. They can't understand it. They can't believe it because they thought more of these people than they should have, right? They should have honored them. They should have loved them. But you never want to put anybody, any human being, especially obviously, in the place of God. Now, as you guys can see, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Let me know in the comments. There's no way that that video should have been, to me, offensive to anybody that was watching the video, because basically the title of the short was Guarding Our Hearts, the Dangers of Putting Humans on a Pedestal. And this short was from a podcast, and I'll post a link in the description. And the podcast was entitled Unveiling the Truth, What's Happening in the Church Controversies. And the reason why I was like really thrown by the dislikes is because if you watch the video, I'm basically trying to encourage you guys or whoever is watching the short, like, listen, don't put other people above yourself. Don't make people higher in your life than they're supposed to be, right? Don't put them in a place of God. Now think about that. Why would that bother somebody? Why would somebody be upset about that, right? That's me telling you, you should never put a human being in the place of God. You should never put a person in a place where you're idolizing them or you're worshiping them, in a position, especially being another human being, right? Like placing them in this superior position. Like this should never happen. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, what, could have offended people like that to where they would dislike it when I'm encouraging them to, like, listen, you're important too. These individuals that you're looking up to or that you're encouraged by, yes, they may be doing some great things, but you're important too. So don't think so highly of these people, especially to put them in the place of God. So, I thought about it a little bit. And like I said, I'll post on YouTube, I'll post a short on Facebook, and then eventually I'll post on Instagram and TikTok. So lo and behold, I posted on TikTok, and maybe a couple minutes after posting on TikTok, it was like the Lord confirmed, what it was that was bothering these individuals. And it came through a comment by someone named Ryan Michael. Like, I don't know this guy personally. He might have just ran across the short on TikTok, but I want you to listen to the comment that he posted. He says, People get very offensive when you tell them what idolatry is. They take it as an attack on them personally because they idolize people and things. And just reading his comment, it was just confirmation of how I was feeling, but it also gave me an answer to how I was feeling. But it's, just what he's saying and how I felt about it is sad and is very discouraging because it's like, listen, you know, why would somebody be upset? You know, why would they take it as an attack when you're trying to encourage them? Like, listen, don't put no other human being in the place of God. And why? Because by doing so, you're going to let yourself down in the long run. Why? Because the Bible is very clear and we've seen it just living life long enough. Man will fail you, but God, he never will. You can put your trust in God, even if something in your life happens the way that you didn't want it to happen, didn't expect it to happen. You know that God has a plan for that situation. And we've all seen that. I won't say we've all, but many of us have experienced that in our lives, especially those of us that know the Lord, right? We see how the things work for our good, how all things work together for the good of those that love God and those that are called according to his purpose. Like we understand, like, listen, these things, whether they happen, whether I was excited about it or whether I was offended by it or upset by it, I see how, it worked in my life. And some may be still waiting to see how those things worked in our lives. But one thing we know about man, right, is that if you put too much trust in man, it could be your mother, it could be your father, your brother, your sister, no matter how much you love them, they will eventually let you down in one way or another. So we should always honor those that we love, right? And when I think about this clip, like I said, it came from a podcast where I was talking about unveiling the truth and different things that was going on in the church world and how God was shaking up the church. But what I was talking about in that particular podcast was, stop idolizing your servants. And I was talking about from a church standpoint, right? Like those of us that are in what we call the fivefold ministry, we are here to serve you. We are here to help you to get to the place where God wants you to be. And one of the scriptures that I shared on that particular podcast was 2 Corinthians 4:5. And listen to what Paul says. He says, for what we preach is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake. So he's saying, listen, when we're up here talking to you, we're not talking about ourselves and how good we are and what it is we are doing. We're talking to you about the Lord and letting you know, like, listen, we are here to serve. We are here to help you to get to the place where you need to be. That's what the whole, when Jesus was washing the disciples' feet, that's what he was showing them, the importance of serving. But what happens is unfortunately, not all leaders, but some leaders, they make people feel like they're more powerful than them. They got it going on more than them. God loves them more than them. God is blessing them more than they are you, right? They start talking about the stuff they have and the places they've been. And a lot of times that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that God favors them over you. Sometimes it's just they have the money to do these things. Sometimes it's because they're taking advantage of the people that they're talking to, that they're turning into a place of idolizing them, right? That they're causing to idolize them. And what I try to encourage people is, listen, as far as especially in leadership, those that are here to minister to you, encourage you, like, listen, you should not be putting us in a place of God, right? You shouldn't be looking at us in that way, because we've come to serve. We've been given as gifts to you, right? Like it says in the word, we've been given as gifts, prophets and apostles and pastors and teachers, evangelists, like we're given as gifts to you. And if you read that Ephesians chapter 4, it talks about how not only how we've been given gifts, but the purpose of why we were given, right? To help you to come into that unity with the rest of the saints, to help you to come into the understanding of God. And that's very important, guys, that you understand that, because we've been talking a lot about purpose on the channel. We've been talking a lot about purpose on the podcast. And a lot of times it's hard to fulfill your purpose when you're just watching somebody else's, right? When you're holding another person in a place of superiority, it's hard to really see how important you are, not only to this life, but also to God. And one thing that when we were talking about purpose, it was another podcast, and I'll actually share this in the link as well. But we were talking about the importance of purpose, right? Like overcoming the obstacles that come to hinder us from fulfilling our purpose. And in that, when you look at the definition of purpose, it's the reason for which something exists or is done, made, used, etc. An intent or desired result, end, aim, or goal. So it's an intended result for our lives that God has for our lives, right? He intends us to get to a certain point in our lives. There's a goal that he has for our lives when he has created us. That's why he said to Jeremiah, I knew you before I formed you in the belly. I knew what it is that I had for you to do. But a lot of times when we're staring at other people and what it is that they have done, and we're just so caught up on their gifts and their talents, a lot of times we're not fulfilling our own. And that's all it is, guys. It's not that these individuals are more important than you or that they're better than you. What's happening is, you're forgetting the gift that God is giving you. You're not tapping into what God is giving you. You're not taking the time out to map things out and be disciplined with your time management and writing down your goals and following those goals step by step. So when you see these other individuals, all they're doing is they're utilizing their talents, right? They're tapping into their talents. They're going after their goals. And some of them, unfortunately, they're not living for God at all. Some of them are living terrible lives, and yet, we'll allow these individuals, to have us mesmerized and idolizing them and think that they're the best thing since sliced bread. And then when we see them fall, or we see them, basically go through some stuff where, it's like, man, I didn't know they were going through that, or I thought they were stronger than that, because we were so tuned into them. Now we've even brought ourselves lower, right? Because the people that we looked up to or idolized, if they couldn't make it, then how am I going to make it? And this is why it's important that we don't look at other individuals as more important than ourselves, and understand you should honor your mother and father, right? You should honor leadership in church. There's a way to honor without idolizing, right? There's a way to honor people without putting them in the place of God, and without making yourself feel inferior to these individuals. So I wanted to encourage you guys, listen, I was very discouraged by seeing that people would be offended by somebody telling them, like, listen, you matter. Like, you're important. But what you need to do is you need to get to work. You need to figure out what it is that God has created you for. Like, what's your purpose for being here? And once you figure that out, and once you begin to write it down and figure out step by step what you need to do, you don't have to take giant steps. It could be small steps, and you'll start to see how significant you are to this life, right? But once again, understanding that you never, even no matter what you accomplish, even if you're somebody listening to me right now and you said, listen, I haven't been fulfilling my purpose. And let's say right now, after you cut this video off, you start to focus, you start to write your goals down, you start to figure out how you're going to do these things. And now you start to see yourself make progress, right? In that progress, you should never allow any of the people that see you doing these things to idolize you. You should always let them know, to God be the glory. It was nobody but God that has given me the opportunity to first do what I'm doing, to stay alive, to do what I'm doing, especially for those of us that didn't fulfill some of the things that God been told us to fulfill, right? For him to give us the grace and the mercy to fulfill those things, we got to let people know, listen, it's not about me, right? It's about God. If it wasn't for God, then I wouldn't be doing this. So don't look at me as your God or your goddess. Look to the one that gives me the capability and gives me the energy and gives me the opportunity to wake up every day to do these things and know that he can do the same for you. Listen, we should not be idolizing anybody. We should understand that we all came here with a purpose, and God's goal is for that purpose to get done. But it is up to us, right? To figure out what that purpose is and to figure out how to go forward in that so that God could be glorified. So I just wanted to share that. I didn't want to hold you guys on a podcast long. But I see it all the time, whether in church or out of church. I just see people so down on themselves, but so high on somebody else. They're always constantly talking about what this person said or what that person said, and how great they are. But when they talk about themselves, it's in a negative way. It's in a low way. I can't never do anything right. I'm always going to be broke. I'm always going to be this. I'm always going to be that. But yet and still somebody that they've never met, that they've never sat down personally with to know what it is that they truly are doing or how they are living, they will put this person on the pedestal and and treat them like they're the Lord himself. And that's something that we don't want to do. So I just pray that this encourage somebody. I didn't mean to just breeze through this like that, but I wanted to really share my heart on this and encourage you guys. Like, listen, you matter. There's a purpose that God has given you to do, and you need to get it done without idolizing other people. Yes, honor them, show them love. We should, right? Because we see that they have tapped into the gifts that God has given them. They're using the gifts that God has given them. Some, for the glory of God, and some, unfortunately, for the devil. But one thing we learn, whether it's for Christ or for Satan, you still have to put that work in. You still have to give them their props, because guess what? Just because you saved and you say, well, God gave me or a book to write, an ideal on a book or an ideal on a movie. Guess what? The Lord ain't coming down and writing that movie for you, right? You still have to put that work in. Whether these people that are in the industry are being given this opportunity by Satan because he is the God of this world, they still have to put that work in, right? Satan isn't physically writing these rhymes for them. He may be dropping certain things in his spirit, just like God does for us. But at the end of the day, we still have to put the work in, right? So there's no need for anybody to be idolized. Honored, yes, but idolized, not at all. Worship, not at all. Worship only belongs to the Lord. But know that I love you guys. And until the next time we hop on the podcast together, shalom.